Something huge is quietly happening all along India's vast coastline. We're talking about a major security transformation. And this isn't just a few tweaks here and there. It's a complete reset of how the country protects its most vital economic gateways. So let's dive in and see what's really going on. And when I say huge, I mean it. The scale is just massive. We're not talking about a handful of key locations. This is a landmark security overhaul that's going to affect more than 250 ports. That's basically every single maritime facility in the country, from the biggest container terminals all the way down to the smallest cargo hubs. Okay, before we get any deeper, there's one key term you absolutely have to know: Recognized Security Organization, or RSO. Think of an RSO as the official regulator, the top cop for port security. They're the ones designated by the government to assess risks, draw up the security plans, and make sure everyone is following the rules. This idea is central to everything we're about to discuss. So here's our game plan for this explainer. First, we'll look at the new regulator that's taking charge. Then we'll dig into what triggered this massive shift in the first place. After that, we'll break down the new hybrid security model they're using and see how this goes way beyond just changing personnel. And finally, we'll connect all the dots to see what this means for India's future. All right, first up, who's the new sheriff in town? The government has made a big call here, putting one of its most elite and experienced security forces in charge of this whole critical domain. And that force is the Central Industrial Security Force, better known as the CISF. This is the heart of the new policy. The CIS has been named the sole recognized security organization for every single seaport in India. This move is a huge deal because it consolidates all that responsibility, replacing a messy, fragmented system with one single central authority. So you might be asking, why the CISF? Well, just look at their track record. These guys are the experts when it comes to protecting the nation's most sensitive infrastructure. We're talking about more than 70 airports, nuclear power plants, space facilities, even the Delhi Metro. Putting them in charge of ports signals that maritime security is now being treated with that same level of critical importance. So that brings us to the big question: why now? What pushed this massive overhaul into motion? Well, it turns out it's a powerful combination of huge economic stakes on one hand and some very serious security threats on the other. And this chart really tells the story. The old system was, well, kind of a mess. It was fragmented, with oversight handled by the Directorate General of Shipping, which isn't a dedicated security regulator. That meant you had different rules in different places. The new system, it completely flips that. Everything is now centralized under the CISF, creating one uniform professional security standard for the entire coastline. Now, let's talk about the money. The economic stakes are just staggering. In the last year, cargo traffic was split almost 50-50 between major and minor ports. This is so important because it shows this isn't just about protecting the big, famous ports. Almost half of India's entire maritime trade flows through these smaller ports, which, in the past, often had inconsistent or even inadequate security. And if you want to see what the threat looks like, here it is in one jaw-dropping number: over 11,000 crore rupees. That's the value of drugs seized at Indian seaports in just the last few years. And get this, that massive figure came from only 19 incidents. It's a stark reminder of the huge security gaps that criminal networks were clearly exploiting. Okay, so we know who's in charge and we know why this is happening. But what does it actually look like on the ground? Let's get into the details of this new hybrid security blueprint. Now, this isn't a complete CSF takeover of every single job. It's actually a much smarter, layered approach. The CSF is going to focus on the core security functions. You know, the really high-stakes stuff like counter-terrorism, anti-sabotage, and high-tech cargo scanning. Meanwhile, the non-core jobs like managing traffic or controlling gates will still be handled by state police or private agencies. But, and this is the key, they'll all be working under CSF supervision and to CSF standards. And this right here, this is a total game changer for quality control. Every single private security guard working at an export-import port now has to go through mandatory training and get certified by the CISF. This ensures that everyone has the same baseline skills and professionalism, kind of like the system that's been so successful in aviation security. And check this out, we're literally looking at the new playbook. This is the official procedure for how different agencies work together on anti-smuggling ops. It's a crystal clear flowchart that maps out exactly who does what when a threat pops up. It gets rid of any confusion by defining clear roles, which means the whole process, from a tip-off to taking action, is way more streamlined and effective. Now, it is absolutely critical to understand that this is not just about changing the guards at the gate. Not at all. This is a deep, systemic overhaul, and it's being backed by brand new laws and entirely new institutions. At the very heart of this is new legislation. The Indian Ports Bill 2025 is designed to completely replace the old law from, wait for it, 1908. Yeah, you heard me right. We're talking about throwing out a legal framework that's over a century old and bringing in one that's actually built for the challenges of modern global trade. So what does this new bill actually do? Well, it builds a few really important pillars. It gives official legal power to state maritime boards, it creates a national council to make sure everyone's on the same page, and it sets up new ways to resolve disputes. And crucially, it makes it mandatory for all ports to comply with global standards for safety and the environment, which brings the whole system up to international best practices. And here's another huge structural change. A brand new oversight body is being created, called the Bureau of Port Security, or BOPS. The model for this is the Bureau of Civil Aviation Security, which has been successfully regulating our airports for decades. They're basically taking the gold standard from aviation security and applying it to our seaports. Now, a change this massive doesn't happen overnight. As you can see from this timeline, it's been a careful process. It started with new guidelines back in 2023, followed by a joint committee in 2024. After the CISF was officially designated as the RSO in late 2025, the government set a very clear target: had this new, standardized system fully rolled out across all 250 ports by the middle of 2026. So let's tie all of this together. Why do all these details matter? Well, this is about way more than just security. It's about paving a way for India's long-term economic growth and its strategic goals on the world stage. You know, the Union Minister Sarbananda Sonowal really hit the nail on the head with this one. He said, this is not merely a legal reform, but a strategic enabler. And that phrase, strategic enabler, is everything. Because better security leads to smoother, more efficient logistics. And that's the engine that really drives economic growth and creates jobs. And this is the vast canvas where all this is happening. Nearly 11,100 kilometers of coastline. This isn't just a line on a map. It's the beating heart of India's blue economy. A trillion-dollar opportunity that is completely dependent on having safe, secure, and efficient ports. Which really leaves us with one final big question. This entire overhaul is creating a powerful new security shield for India's gateways to the world. So, with that shield now being forged into place, is the country's massive maritime economy finally ready to hit the accelerator and surge ahead?